Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name is Jen Jones. Today I have with me Bill Malloy, who is one of our directors of career development, and Jen Ravigum, who is one of our executive vice presidents. And they are going to talk to all of you about starting a real estate team so that as you guys go through and hear their presentation today, you can start to really self-reflect and figure out if are in the right place for you to start taking the first step in building a team.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. This is our second round on doing this. If you're attending today, I'm going to make the assumption that you are thinking about possibly starting a team. And what we'll really be doing today is probably raising more questions for you than providing a lot of answers, because there really is quite a bit you should be thinking about before you take that leap to actually start the team. So we'll run through some basic information about structure, things to think about. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask, but we should have some time at the end to really go into a little bit more Q&A. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And is everybody able to see the slide deck? Looks like we should be good.
Looks good.
And see if technology is going to cooperate this morning. And one more time. There we go. All right, so let's start with the basics. What is a team? Well, a team is really just a group of two or more individual agents working together. Doesn't even have to be agents technically, but working together to achieve common tasks or goals. But not all groups are actually a team. So normally teams are normally going to have members with complementary skill sets that when they come together through thoughtful hiring process, it will typically create a synergy that allows all of them to maximize their individual strengths and typically minimize their weaknesses. And that synergy combined with a coordinated effort can really help all of them perform beyond their individual capabilities and goals as individuals. So some of the benefits of actually starting a team really can be specialization. So you have the ability to focus on what you're good at by employing others to handle, could be transaction coordination, listing coordination, administrative duties, buyer sales, and more. Should allow everybody to end up with a better work-life balance. With a well-trained, well-run team, you can have the ability to unplug more. My experience as a team member, that absolutely was the case. We were set up for the team that I was on very much like a sports team. Everybody specialized in a certain area. And believe it or not, despite the high deal count that we did, we averaged over 60 transactions per agent in the field. But technically, I worked less than 2,000 hours a year. Think about that for those of you that are working in the field right now with clients. How many of you actually have a day off? So it really should allow you that better work-life balance if things are structured properly. And hopefully some personal growth. For some people, there's no greater satisfaction than training and coaching someone else and help them achieve their goals. And in my opinion, least of the benefits of starting a team might be that income opportunity. So with more efficiency, that usually leaves more time for more clients. More clients helped means more leads and again, more income ultimately. But teams also have a number of challenges. So the big one being managing the team. So absolutely there can be personality conflicts. You'll have to deal with typically coaching your team members, tracking production, accountability, and sometimes firing employees. So that recruiting and hiring process is likely to be a constant thing. Most teams are going to have consistent turnover. Team members will come and go, so you really always need to be thinking about looking for new talent, recruiting new talent, interviewing new people. And again, as team leader, you're going to be responsible for all the finances. So you will be the one probably supplying the marketing budget handling the salaries of your support staff, and again, typically providing leads to your agents so that they can hit their financial goals. And so again, part of that is going to be tracking and monitoring all the leads that the team brings in to make sure that the money you're spending as team leader is actually being spent wisely. Um, it can be a very worthwhile thing, but again, I put the income potential of the team as the last because you probably need to be prepared that your expenditures to run a team may be higher at the start and you may not necessarily be making more money by having the team because of, again, the additional startup costs for that. Any questions on any of that so far? Jen, anything you would want to add on those ideas?
Well, I was just thinking about what some of those startup costs are, because I'm sure that sometimes agents think to themselves, well, I already pay for my E&O and my MLS and, my board dues. So, if I just have my team members pay for those items as well, what else would my expenses be? And I think it's important to think about, as we're going through this, we always are talking about you as a team leader, what's the value proposition for someone to join your team? And why would an agent who has the ability to do a lot of the things that they could do on your team want to work with you? And sometimes part of that is, what are you providing? And those things may be dues or errors and omissions insurance, but you're also providing marketing, you're providing leads, you're providing administrative assistance, and all of those different costs come into play. So that should definitely be in your mindset as you start a team, is, putting structures in place that benefit your team members. And it's going to cost you money to make money. So it's important to keep that in mind. So just wanted to share that a little bit.
So we'll talk a little bit about various team structures. There's, for the most part, two primary layouts. Partnership is one of them, and that's, again, typically two or more agents that come together to form that team. And it can be as many members as they want to have, but usually starts as two agents working together. The other primary model is the CEO Rainmaker model, which is the type of team that I was on. And that is usually one main team leader. Their primary responsibility is listing and lead generation for the team. Tech glitches again. So again, things to consider before you actually start a partnership. Do your strengths and weaknesses balance each other out? Will your combined efforts actually increase your level of production? We do tend to see agents that go the partnership route don't always end up doing more business, but it's that bond of working together that they enjoy. So while they don't end up really doing more, it is still beneficial from their emotional health, so to speak. If you're going to form a partnership, are you both ready and willing to put in the same amount of effort? So really look at each other, how you do business, how you interact with clients, your communication styles, and your customer service levels. I'll tell you that is one of the struggles we tend to see with the partnerships, is that sometimes one partner feels they're doing more than the other partner, or they start to have issues with the other partner's communication methods. So again, if you're thinking about forming a partnership, really sit down and evaluate how you each work with your clients and how you're going to interact with each other and what your expectations are. So do you have the same values, morals, and goals for this partnership? And we're going to suggest that you actually test the waters first. Before you form that official partnership, have you done a few deals together? And we're going to say do 5, 6 deals together, see how it really works at that level of cooperation to see if it really makes sense to form that partnership. And again, how is that partnership going to be laid out? Is one partner going to have veto power? Because no matter how much you get along, there will be times where you may not be on the same page on things. So who gets to be the ultimate decision maker? A 50-50 partnership usually ends up having more problems in the long run, because if one party does not have the veto ability, then you can end up doing nothing because you simply can't agree to take that next step forward. So the final step on that, if you're thinking going the partnership route, put your divorce papers together. Everybody goes into it with the best of intentions, but they don't always last. So before you even take that step of forming the partnership, put together the plan for what would happen if the partnership is going to dissolve. So figure out the expectations, what's going to happen with those client leads, etc. Now, the CEO Rainmaker model, typically the team leader is the branding identity. And so most of the marketing is going to be built around the team leader. And again, they are typically the primary lead generator. And in many of the CEO Rainmaker models, all the listing activity with any additional team members may go under the team leader. Doesn't have to, but that is frequently how the CEO Rainmaker models have been set up. And so these typically start out at a point where the team leader has already been generating enough business that they start to have too many leads to handle on their own. And that's where they start bringing in the additional team members to handle some of those leads. And so usually that Rainmaker model, the CEO team leader is a little bit more business minded. As we frequently say, they are working on the business at that point rather than in the business. They may not necessarily be in the field working with clients. They may be more in the office working on the rest of the business plan. And so again, for that model, if you're thinking along those lines, is that your mindset? So are you ready to set up that team culture? Are you, again, ready to mentor and train the agents on your team? The CEO Rainmaker model, again, is the type that I was on. And as I said, we absolutely had specialization. We had our team leaders. We had somebody that actually ran the day-to-day in the office. As agents in the field, we had listing agents who worked primarily with sellers and rarely, if ever, worked buyers. And then we had our buyer agents who worked exclusively with buyers and did not do things on the listing side. We had people that answered the phone. We had people that negotiated the offers on our contracts. So it was a very high degree of specialization for that model. And typically, again, when this path is followed, it starts from that team leader having more business than they can handle, and the first hire ends up being an admin to take some of those lower level duties off their plate so they can focus on the lead generation and the face-to-face with clients to continue building the income to then again bring in more team members as necessary. Any questions on the two basics of the team models?
So
Jen,
Bill,
anything to add on
I
those
just,
two?
yeah, I just wanted to add a couple things. So two things that I always think of is when we're on the CEO Rainmaker concept, when I talk to new to business people coming into real estate for the first time, and I'm talking about, do you want to be on a team or do you want to run your own business? And what does that look like for you? I usually am talking to them that, if you are coming into real estate and you're thinking to yourself, I really want to be an entrepreneur. I really want to run my own business and build something over the course of my career. This is probably more the model that you want to consider, basically trying to grow into your own mini business within our business. And you really need to start thinking about that as you're building the team, what that structure is going to look like and how is that going to be most beneficial. But you really do have to look at it like the CEO. What is it that your team is going to be doing to attract members, generate leads for them, and run very productive. And again, hiring that team admin or assistant is really important. I actually did the other route of a team when I was selling, which was the partnership. And my biggest piece of advice for that is don't partner with your friends. Um, I've seen more than one team, including my own, ruin a friendship. So, and part of that is not that we didn't love and care for each other, but we didn't do business well together because my vision of what my business was going to be and her vision of what her business was going to be were so totally different. And as much as we liked each other, had a great time together, spent lots of time talking about lead generation together, when it came down to actually doing the work, it was a challenge. And I think I've seen partnerships work really well for husband and wife teams, but I don't necessarily see it that way when it's a friend. And I've had lots of agents sit down with me and say, but we get along so well and we have a great time working together and we have this plan. But make sure you write it all out before you get started. And I definitely recommend that, even if you're thinking partnership, maybe leaning a little bit more towards that CEO rainmaker model where one person is actually the team lead and one person is kind of willing to give up that power in the partnership, but really drive the team, you're going to be in a better situation. So, I would definitely encourage you to talk to your office leader and sit down and really work through that together, because two strong, successful agents working together might have some great ideas, but somebody's really got to take the lead and go with their own vision when it comes right down to it. So.
Absolutely. And again, as I said earlier, it is one of the things we do tend to see more with the partnerships that exactly as Jen was just saying, it starts out with the greatest of intentions. They're great friends. They enjoy each other's company. But when it comes to running the business, things don't always mesh there. And it's not that it's a system that can't work. It absolutely works in a number of cases, but we do see more of the partnerships that tend to separate over time because eventually there is just something happening within the business itself that there ends up being enough of a disagreement that they end up parting company and going their separate ways. So, things to consider before heading on that CEO Rainmaker team model. Do you really see yourself as a leader? Again, Jen was just saying it's also important on the partnership aspect. And as we said, you really need to have someone that has the veto ability. But if you're going to go that CEO Rainmaker model, do you really see yourself as the leader of the team? Or are you really a great salesperson and that's what you like? That's what you love? So if you don't really want to lead people, then again, I'm going to question why do you want the team? So if you're a great salesperson, what is it that you love to do? What do you want to focus on with your business? Do you want to spend time with clients or do you want to spend your time running the business and managing others? Because if you're going to start a team and you're going to go on this CEO Rainmaker model, expect to give up some of your time with your clients to be able to focus on managing those team members. It is just part of the package if you go that route. And are you going to be willing and really ready to commit to helping others succeed? I kind of said earlier that as the CEO, you are basically in charge of the whole business. And so, again, you're going to be spending more time on what's happening with your team members and less time on your own potentially personal stuff, as well as your own time with your clients. So, are you really willing to commit to helping your other team members succeed? Are you ready to put your time in for mentoring and coaching your agents? If you're bringing on new agents, absolutely, they can go through the Accelerate program. But at that point, you still will be responsible for mentoring and continuing their training as time goes on. Same thing with hiring vet agents. If you're going to hire vet agents onto your team, what is their experience? Do you effectively need to retrain them because wherever they've been, whatever they've done, they're not doing it the way you want it done? So mentoring and coaching is going to come along with that team lead position. And are you afraid to fail? If you're afraid to fail, get used to it because you should already know if you've been in this business for a while, it constantly changes. And every time you think you know how it goes, something in the market shifts and we have to relearn things. So if you struggle with failure as a solo agent, expand on that as a team leader, because again, now you're going to need to be thinking about how things are shifting and affecting your team members as well as yourself. So, as a team leader, again, you're typically eventually going to be at the point where you will work on the business, not in the business on a daily basis. So, everything that you are now doing as a solo agent, be prepared to turn those duties over to somebody else. So, are you ready to delegate that and let people work with your clients? Let them potentially do things their way, not your way. So,
Bill, I have to jump in and just say that that's probably one of the biggest challenges I see as someone who's starting a new team is they come in and they say, hey, I really need help with, all these leads I have that I don't have time to get to, but they don't want to give off any of their leads because they're worried that their clients aren't going to be cared for in the way that they would
absolutely.
care for them. And that's where all of the mentoring and coaching and planning comes from. But before you even jump in and start your team, you have to make a list of what is it that I'm willing to give up control of, because that's going to make all the difference in the world. Because you can train and coach. I know you know this, Bill, from your day-to-day business and Accelerate. You can train and coach and tell someone how to do something and polish them up like a perfect little stone, and they're still going to go out and do something that you would have never done. And you have to have that trust and faith in your team members that they're going to be able to handle it, even if it's not exactly the way that you would have done it in the past. So, it's really key to building a successful team is being able to kind of let people go do their thing once you know that they're prepared to do it. So delegation, love it.
That leads us into our next point. So, do you as an agent already have a well-defined brand? And can that brand be basically turned into the team brand? And again, how does delegating your clients or other things to other team members, are they going to do it in a way that is going to be consistent with your brand? And if they're going to do it differently, again, how is that going to sit with you? Give that some thought as you start thinking about putting a team together. This is not intended to discourage you from starting a team. It's to really get you started on the right foot if it's a path that you really intend to follow. So again, are you willing to continue to lead generate? And do you have the systems in place to continue that, distribute leads to team members, and again, make sure that they're all handled properly? And so going back to that question that Jen has already mentioned a couple of times, what is your value proposition? Can you answer that question for somebody asking, why should I be part of your team? And so, again, why should your clients work with you and your team members? Give that some serious thought. So, we're not going
I
to
have
go into.
to say, Bill, it's one of the things that we think about as a company a lot is what's our value proposition? What do we bring to our agents? What can we do every day to make their jobs better? And it's how we attract agents into home sale. It's how we attract teams into home sale. And it's how we maintain a high level of retention with people who stay with us is that value proposition. And we make sure that we are demonstrating that every day. So things like this, that's exactly what a team leader then needs to be doing for their team as well, because agents who are on your team are constantly looking around at other teams, they're looking around at other companies, and they're looking at different value propositions. So you as a team leader also need to demonstrate that value proposition so that they can see the benefits of staying with you. And those are always things that there's a lot of free opportunities that you can bring to the table for your team members in coaching and training. But, you also want to be looking at how do I bring the team together? How do I make this feel like a connected, cohesive group? I see teams every day that I bet you there's people on their teams that they don't know the other people on the team because the team leader doesn't have meetings. They don't bring people into the office. They don't do a lot of things retention wise for their team. And then I see other teams that they're like one big family, that they spend a lot of time together. They do a lot of things together. They do coaching, they do training. And then they also do fun events together, like their client parties, that type of thing. And that really goes a long way in adding that value proposition to a team. So.
And on that idea, here in the Harrisburg area, we have our Rethink group, which is primarily agents that are pushing the envelope a little bit more on the team front or the marketing front, technology front. And recently they had a meeting where the team leaders had all their team members come in and they were surveyed to ask, why are you on a team? And the number one response among the team members of the various teams that were there was the family aspect, the camaraderie of the team. And that was a very important thing to all of them. Secondary was the lead generation. And so, again, it is something that team members are typically looking for, is for the team leader to help supply leads for their income. So I'm going to back that up. So if you're heading that team route, seriously thinking about it, really look at your current income level and figure out how much you're going to be able to grow your business, starting with an admin hire. Again, being able to unload some of those lower level duties that don't, possibly at least, don't require a real estate license to handle, maybe some of your marketing things along those lines, leaving you more time for the face-to-face with clients, the field work, the contract writing, to be able to bring in more income. Again, that is the typical first hire, because at that point, once you have some of those lower level duties off your plate, if it allows you more time for more clients, that results in more commission. And again, eventually you'll still reach a point where you will need additional help beyond that admin. And you should be at the point financially that you can afford to make that next hire. So where do you start if you want to actually start a team? So we have a worksheet that we'll pass out, which is points to ponder, something to go through those questions and talk to your office leader about it. Jen, is that something that you're going to share in the chat box?
Yep, I can put the link in the chat box, but I will also send it to you guys with a copy of the slides and the recording from today, so you have everything that goes with this session to review and look over too.
So process-wise, after going over that worksheet, create a plan for yourself, and again, probably that future admin or possibly transaction coordinator to follow. So it's what our team referred to as a hat write-up. You as a solo agent wears a lot of different hats. You're a marketing person. You are a showing agent. You are a listing agent. There's a number of different duties that you have to handle. And so put down on paper all the different things that you have to do as an agent. So document all that, all your duties, all your various processes and the systems, so that you have it down on paper, so that if you're going to start talking to somebody about joining your team and turning some of those things over to somebody else, they have a clear idea of what your expectations are and how to do it. Because if you can't put it down on paper in a clear manner, how are they ever going to understand what you want them to do? Again, it's one of the stress points both for team leaders and for team members if they don't understand each other and what the expectations are to achieve that next level of success. So start by documenting everything you do. If you can write it out, somebody else can follow it. So as you're doing that list of duties, also figure out what you want to then focus your time on down the road. And we're going to suggest you really focus your time on what the real income producing activities are, which really is typically focusing on listings, because if you have the listings, it's going to bring more buyers. So that is our main suggestion, is start with the idea of being able to do more on the listing side, because that should bring you leads to help support additional team members. So now that you have everything documented for your duties and processes, now start thinking about that process of hiring either an admin or potentially a transaction coordinator. And so what would their compensation be like? They're probably more hourly, maybe salary if they're full-time, or again, as a transaction coordinator, potentially that might be paid on a per transaction basis. And a transaction coordinator, if it's something you're thinking about, we already have a transaction coordinator program in place that you could start putting off some of those duties related to your transactions to that person. So again, you can focus more of your time on your lead gen and your face-to-face with clients. But if you're going to hire your own, again, what does that compensation plan look like? How are you going to advertise to find that admin or TC for direct hire? How are you going to run your interviews for that person? Do you know what you want them to do and what type of personality might be best suited to handle those duties? So how are you going to figure out if they're the right fit? Well, we're going to suggest you use the DISC test. If what you want to turn over is a task list of things for them to do, are they suited to following a task list? Or are they not good at detail and following checklists? If they're not oriented towards that, then that might be the wrong fit for the position you're trying to hire for. So we're going to suggest you use that DISC test or one of the other similar tests to help you determine the right person for the job. Jen, anything you would add on any of that before we continue on?
Nope, but I'm going to repeat what Jen Jones just put into the chat box is that, if you aren't quite ready to hire your own admin, don't forget that we do have those resources in the company. We have Heather Donaldson, who's a transaction coordinator that a lot of our team leaders and independent agents have been using. Again, if you're not quite ready to start a team, using someone like a transaction coordinator and getting used to just delegating that process to somebody else is a great way to start getting your feet wet. And Heather has phenomenal reviews from the agents who work with her. And we also have our virtual assistant, Tiffany, in agent services that can help on some of the marketing side of things as well. So, don't hesitate to use those services as you're kind of starting to take things off your plate in the sense of, I want to start a team. You don't have to hire your own people right now. It's a great time to start practicing handing things off before you do it.
Again, if you're going to hire your own people, is it great to have somebody that works directly for you and will truly do it the way you want it done? Yes. But as we talked about earlier, are you ready to take that step and truly be responsible for them, making sure that you're bringing enough income in to continually support their salary or their hourly or however you're paying them? And that's where using the already existing internal company systems can start you on that path, increase your efficiency without you having to actually take on that direct expense yourself. And
And
again,
they do say, I'm sorry, Bill, they do say that when you hire someone to do your administrative tasks,
hold on, don't hang up. Wait 1 second.
they do say that when you hire someone to do your administrative tasks, it can actually increase your business almost by half. So even, a lot of times when people are thinking, I need to hire a buyer agent or I need to hire another listing agent for my team, that's not really what you need. What you really need is someone who kind of takes all the paperwork and back end stuff off your plate. So, using someone like Heather, that helps you budget that into your process so you can see how it's going to free up your time and help you generate more business, because you're not doing the day-to-day paperwork that you were doing before. So it's a great way to get used to spending that money without the commitment of hiring your own employee. So it's great.
if you're going to turn those leads over to a buyer agent, how much are they getting paid? Well, it's a significantly larger portion of the incoming commission on that transaction than paying some admin hourly to do the low level stuff that you need done. How much time do you spend on phone calls to the lender when you're under contract, following up with the inspectors, negotiating, all those little details that have to be handled in the transaction that can potentially be turned over to somebody else so you can be making the lead generation calls, following up with other past clients, working them for referrals, and having more people to work with yourself to, again, retain the bulk of the commission on those potential transactions. So it's a little bit different thinking than what many agents start out as. They think bringing in that buyer agent to help with clients, but no, get those low level, time consuming phone call and paperwork details off your plate. It actually makes you more efficient and significantly increases your income rather than sending those leads to somebody else. So once you've again laid out all your job duties and figured out the hiring process for your TC or admin, you still need to continue refining all the rest of your systems and processes. Again, this industry always changes, and your systems and your processes will continue to change. So make sure you're using a CRM to capture and follow up and track all the leads that the team has. And figure out what sources of leads, what sources you're going to have and use, and again, really be able to track the leads that are coming in and the transactions that are getting closed from those leads to see if it's cost effective for that lead source or not. And continue to streamline and organize all your listing and buyer marketing programs for increasing the income from those advertising streams. So next step is to plan for the future growth. So figure out what the real compensation model is going to be for the rest of the team members. Again, typically your internal office staff, your admins, TCs, potentially contract negotiators, additional admin staff, depending on how much you're going to grow the team. Typically that's more hourly or salary. TCs, again, if you hire it out to a third party, you may be able to pay that on a per transaction basis. But if you're going to be bringing on agents, how are you going to compensate them? And there's a wide variety on options on where that can go. We're not going to go into the real detail on that today. That's a whole nother class all on itself, and we're still working on all the details for that one. But start thinking on how you're going to pay your additional team members as far as the licensed agents go. And same as we said with figuring out that initial divorce plan on a partnership, figure out your team agreement on the CEO Rainmaker model and figure out again what your value proposition is and have a team agreement. So again, expectations are clear, what you expect of your team members and what they can expect of you. And at that point, again, once that's all laid out and there's a clear understanding, now you're at that point of being ready to hire the buyer agent if you have too many buyer clients for you to handle. So all of those you can start passing off to buyer agents. And again, they can handle what you used to do as far as converting those incoming leads to actual clients. They can handle the showings, all the rest of the buyer side needs, writing up the offers, all of that. Any questions on the generalized process of starting up that team? So what is that right time to hire that TC? Well, starting with the admin or the TC, when the amount of business you're already generating is already making it difficult for you to do everything. Basically, you're spending so much time on all those little time-consuming follow-up calls and everything else, your marketing, your Facebook, all your other social media stuff, all of those little details are taking up so much time that you simply cannot make more calls, generate more business with clients, and you need to take some of that off your plate. And part of that is, again, are you ready to let go? Jen was talking about that earlier with, again, are you ready to delegate some of this to somebody else? If you're going to hesitate on giving it up, think about that long and hard, because if you're turning this over, are you going to trust them to do it either the way you want it done and that you made the right hire and they will do it your way, or that you're going to be comfortable with them doing it the way they want to do it and that the results will meet your expectations and satisfaction? So when you're ready to let go of those duties, again, you may be at the point of being ready to hire an admin. And again, most importantly, when that investment into that new hire actually will free up enough time for you to really focus on more of your lead gen and the face-to-face with the clients to truly result in more income. So what do you need in your admin personality-wise? Again, we suggested earlier that you have them take the DISC test. So typically that admin look for what we call strong S or C tendencies, where they're going to have a high care factor for what they're doing and the people they're doing it for. And again, especially when it comes to the TCs, a high detail level so that again, they can follow the checklist processes and make sure that everything is being done on time and correctly. And if you're considering hiring somebody that has a high I personality, they care about people and they want to chat with people. But again, they typically, in general, if they don't also have a high C factor, they may struggle with trying to follow your checklist of things that you want them to do. And we see that happening all the time. Again, people make hires because their friends or their family member and they want them to take over some duties, but their personality just isn't structured right to do it the way either the agent wants it done or what they need done. And so again, the hire doesn't end up working. So there's a concept we talk about frequently, which is be slow to hire, but quick to fire. And that can be very difficult with friends and family, as Jen was talking about earlier. Again, take your time to really hire the right person. If you're a D type personality where you want things done and you want them done now, the hiring process can be very difficult because you just want it done. You want somebody to start doing it. And again, there is more of a tendency to maybe pick the wrong person just because they're available right now, rather
Well,
than
one of the
really
things,
deciding whether they're the right personality to do what you're asking them to do. Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
no, that's okay. I was cutting you off there. One of the things that I would jump in there and say is that, you know, hire to your weakness as well. You know, I mean, I think I'm great. I mean, but hiring myself would be a terrible idea. And so a lot of people will say, oh, like, I really like that person. They're just like me. They think like I think, they operate like I think. But the reality is that that is probably not what you need. And especially if you are like that rainmaker type, high D, high I personality, you probably need someone who is almost the opposite of that to actually handle the back end of your business, because you don't want someone who's a high D trying to tell you how you should be running your business if you're a high D. So you honestly need to figure out, you know, where you are on the DISC schedule and then hire someone that maybe complements where some of your weaknesses are. And it's a really important process to go through to give some consideration to who you bring on board, because otherwise you're going to keep hiring people and you're going to be spinning your wheels as you get someone up and trained and running. So giving it a lot of thought and time and careful consideration up front is going to go really a long way in the long run.
And you'll know when you have the right hire because they will not only do what you've asked them to do. Again, your process list was clear. They're handling all of that. They're doing it the way you want it done or better than you wanted it done or expected it to be done. And they actually want to do more. They want to grow in their position. You have somebody that is looking to grow and still do everything you hired them to do. That is absolutely the right hire. So how do you leverage that admin or TC hire? What do you have them do? Again, they can take on the marketing tasks. And so they can build your social media output to a much more consistent basis. So again, the general public, if you're doing real marketing and advertising, once they hit your Facebook page or your other social media platforms, they're seeing there's consistent posting and postings of things that are going to want to keep them coming back to look for more. Again, building that brand identity. So they can keep all that updated. They can manage the website, any blog, if you're doing that as a team leader, managing basically all your online profile stuff. most importantly, tracking and coordinating all your inbound leads to make sure that, again, all those incoming leads are being handled, and again, tracking where they're coming from. They can handle your marketing materials, keep your CRM updated, manage your database, whatever system you're using, organizing and prepping for prospective activities and your client consultations, putting together listing packets, buyer packets, all of that, having that ready to go. They can work on getting your reviews and testimonials from your clients. It's an area where a lot of agents don't keep up on that. And again, it is one of the first things that the general consumer looks for. They want to see that whatever business they're considering has happy clients, and then they'll want to be one of them. So getting those testimonials can be a great thing to have your admin working on. As far as the transaction coordinator goes, again, their main function is really going to be tracking all the details within the transaction itself once it's been put together. They could, again, potentially do your listing materials, but that's not necessarily their highest and best. But working on all the details in your contracts, preparing the additional addenda, or possibly even negotiating the home inspection related issues, they can handle that. They can handle things like your photos, your staging, signage, all of that for your listings. They can handle the basics of listing input. Again, that can be shared from the basic admin. So the TC is primarily, though, going to be the details of any transactions that have already been put together. So again, let's talk more about when you hire that buyer agent. And again, the primary answer is when you're already generating too many buyer leads for you to handle all of them. And so again, the team that I was on, $750,000 a year marketing budget. We did over 400 transactions a year. 2/3 of that was on the listing side. All of our advertising was focused on getting more listings. We had so many listings that it supported our buyer agents doing over 60 deals a year. And again, some people think of that kind of number and say, oh, that would be way too much work. I'm already doing 10 deals a year, 15, 20 deals a year, and it's full time for me as an agent. But again, in the team structure, because much of the duties that an agent normally has to do as a solo agent can be handed off to that admin or transaction coordinator, it allows the buyer agent more time to be in the field, face to face with clients, showing properties, writing up the offers, and much of it after that point when the offer has been accepted is actually being handled by other team members. And so when you, the team leader, are generating enough buyer leads to start handing them off, it's a beautiful thing. So again, that also follows up having all of those systems and processes to make sure that those leads are going to be followed up by the buyer agents that you hire and turn those leads over to. And again, monitoring that the transactions are all being handled smoothly. Again, preferably you're already using a TC yourself to handle your own deals. And then again, that TC is already in place when you're at the point of needing to hire a buyer agent. Again, you're not going to hire the buyer agent until you really have that full plan laid out and your structure is set up with already having your job descriptions and what your expectations are for those buyer agents. And again, as we said earlier, how you're going to pay those buyer agents. What is that compensation plan going to be? So what is the follow-up at this point? Go over with your office leader. If it's something you're seriously thinking about starting a team, start with that worksheet that is in the chat box and that Jen's going to email out. Talk to your office leader about what you think makes you a good team leader, whether you're ready to start delegating some of those duties. Talk to them about how you picture your team being structured. Are you thinking partnership? Are you thinking the CEO rainmaker model or one of the hybrids that's a little bit in between? And again, can you clearly lay out why somebody might want to join your team? So we do intend to do additional sessions, getting more into the meat of the details of how team leaders might do things, pay structures, etc. So stay tuned for that. Anybody have any questions we can answer? Jen, anything you wanted to add before the Q&A?
So we do have a question in the chat box from Katie Hall. And Katie wants to know if a transaction coordinator needs to be licensed. So Katie, I will tell you that Heather Donaldson is licensed in both Pennsylvania and Maryland. Because of the activities that she does for agents, including communicating directly with buyers and sellers regarding paperwork and different pieces of the home inspection, that type of thing, she does need to be licensed in order to do that. If you have somebody who is not really client facing and is just doing things behind the scenes for you, they don't need to be licensed. But certainly a transaction coordinator who you have interacting with your clients on a regular basis and discussing any type of real estate, they would need to be licensed in order to do that. If you have them, you know, installing lock boxes on houses or opening doors, all of those things do require a real estate license. So we always recommend that you find someone who's willing to get licensed eventually, because quite often it grows into that if that's something that you want them to do. So.
Great question.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions that anyone has for us?
No? All right. Well, thank you very much for attending. We hope you found it time well spent. If you do have any future questions, again, reach out to your office leader. You feel free to reach out to me or to Jen Ravegum. And with that, we look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.